How do you like it?
Hello there, Nerd Soup fans, and
wire?
today on the...
It's fine.
Okay.
Mine's over there. All right, good.
Hello there, Nerd Soup fans, and on today... hello there, Nerd Soup fans, and...
This guy stinks.
Want me to do it?
You want to do it?
No.
Just do it, please.
Fucking high.
I can't do this again.
Hello there, Nerd Supinites, Supinators, and today on this episode of Nerd Soup, we are going to be discussing Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, one of the most iconic horror movies of all time. Came out in 1980. One of Kubrick's best film. I don't know if I would put it top 5. That's a separate video. The Kubrick Mount Rushmore. What are your top 5 Kubricks, Ted?
Really? What? You couldn't go to Aaron?
And we'll also be discussing Stephen King's book, The Shining, which the film took its influence from, or inspiration from, because it's an adaptation. But it's not really, because that's been the debate, the whole debate. And me and Aaron, we all just read the book to prepare for this review, and now we're part of it. We're part of the debate.
I love a good debate.
Glad to be here.
Embrace debate.
Yes.
Scale. Yeah, so what are your overall thoughts on The Shining, as the movie first? I'll start with either one of you, whoever wants to talk first.
You can go first. Well, I'll go first.
That's how I always wait, 'cause you always look like
You
you're about to
didn't
talk. I
say
never
anything.
know when to say anything.
I enjoyed the movie, but I messed up and...
Oh, here we go.
No, I read the book first.
Here we
and
go.
I feel like that influenced the way I felt about the movie.
So you hate Stanley Kubrick, you hate the movie, you hate Jack Nicholson.
I didn't say that.
You pretty much, you
So I
didn't have
liked
to
it.
say it.
We can read between the lines here, Ted. That's what we do.
No, I was expecting so much more in the film after reading the book, because there's just so much in the book. I don't blame Kubrick, I don't know how you can incorporate that without making the movie a 4-hour-long movie.
Yeah, it makes sense. I saw the movie a while ago, and I just read the book now when we were getting ready for this, and then I watched it again, and I can see where you're coming from. There's so much more in the book. There's so much more depth to the characters, so much backstory. If you're just looking at the movie as a straight horror movie, it's one of the best horror movies of all time. I think it set the standard, and I love the movie. Everything from the score, from the acting, from Jack Nicholson, it's terrifying. I remember watching it as a kid, and all those iconic, "Here's Johnny." Whew. That must suck for you, because you've probably definitely seen that, the "Here's Johnny."
Yeah.
And you probably knew right away, like, while you're reading it, you know that scene from the movie that, oh, Jack's going to fucking attack his family.
Sooner or
when it
later he's
acts.
going to fucking go crazy.
Were you like at all like, oh, maybe it's a different guy. Maybe Jack Nicholson played someone else.
No, it could have been, no, I kind of knew it was happening.
Yeah, so that kind of stinks, but.
Yeah, and I would recommend that you watch the movie first and then read the novel, because I can understand if you've read it first and then you see the movie, maybe you are just more disappointed. Because when I read the novel, I wasn't disappointed by anything. I thought, oh, this is another version of this story, more fleshed out characters.
I was surprised how deep they go with all the characters. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and I read It before I saw the movie It, and it's very similar. Is that Stephen King, one of his great skills is world building, and some of my favorite chapters in this novel is when Jack is discovering the history of the hotel, and he's going through all those boxes of papers, and he's discovering the history with the mob. Same thing in It. My favorite chapter is when Mike would visit his father in the hospital, and they would talk about the history of Derry and how he first saw Pennywise. But when referring to the movie, Kubrick says the theme of the movie is that there is something inherently wrong with the human personality. There's an evil side to it. We can see the dark side without having to confront it directly. And I think that's what this movie is. It's a more surrealist thriller film, whereas King's book is a family drama that's dealing with the deterioration of a family.
It was never really said if the house is haunted, though. This could have just been the cabin fever and him just losing his mind within the hotel. It says a lot about how good Kubrick is, where you can end the movie without really giving an answer of what happened.
Well, there's a different argument to be made. What's more ambiguous, the novel or the film?
Definitely the film, in my opinion.
Yeah. But the novel, too, you can, for the metaphor of alcoholism and just deterioration, I think in the novel it's more apparent that it's a haunted, everything's haunted, but you're right. It could be seen in the film as it's all in their heads and it's just Jack going absolutely bananas.
Well, King's biggest problem is that one of his biggest problems was that Kubrick didn't lean into the alcoholism enough. And he thinks that in the film, the evils are coming from within Jack Torrance. But I would disagree. I would say you can make more of that case from the novel. You can strip away all the supernatural elements, and it's You could just say it's Jack just losing his mind because it's his past demons catching up to him.
But the thing is, to argue that, Jack is a fucking nut job right from the get-go. He's not stable. And in a novel, he's more... There's a time when they're actually happy in the novel when they're at the hotel. He had a redemption, and he does have a lot of redeeming qualities.
Yes.
In the film, he doesn't.
I wish they would have made Jack more endearing in the movie, because I think his descent into madness... And it's more of a gradual descent in the novel, but in the film, like you said, it's right away. That's why I think the film is more ambiguous. It just feels like Jack is being possessed by something that's out of his control, something that is supernatural. Whereas in the book, even though King makes it apparent that the house is haunted, it almost feels like destiny. Like this is the path that Jack was going on, regardless of if he took the job at the Overlook. This was going to be his fate because of the inner demons that he has been dealing with.
I was upset, though. I was waiting when I was reading. I'm like, when are the twins? Did I miss it? Are they coming?
I was waiting for the twins, too, yeah.
Never
Could be
came.
one of the most creepiest part of the movies.
Twins?
That or the...
What is it about, like, creepy
237?
little girls that are so scary in horror films?
Stu broke
the
this down
music.
brilliantly. Stu said that it's just the innocence of children and older people that you don't expect them to hurt you.
Yeah.
So when they are evil, it's just even more scarier because it is that innocence. It feels like they're not in control of it, like something is possessing them.
That's creepy. It's like, imagine having just, like, that's like my little sister coming to me and like, Stu, do you know how it feels to get your toes chopped off?
Well, it's that, or it could just be Kubrick, because I think if you give Kubrick a camera and some good music, he can make your living room scary.
Yeah.
The way he timed, because he made that scary with not really like loud, like moments, you know, that like freak you out in the movie,
Just fucking
in the
yeah,
theaters, or
yeah, right.
like jumping moments. Like
yeah,
he
like
freaked
jump
you out,
scares, like you just yelling at us right now.
He scared you with unsettling images and the music, you know, with the build up, the suspense, everything. He did a great job.
Yeah, it's good. I'll point to the scene, I guess the most iconic scene, I would say, besides the "Here's Johnny," when she's going through all the typewriter and he's just slowly creeping out behind him, and that music that's playing is absolutely chilling, and just that slow, the way he directs it, the way it's shot, he's just slowly walking towards her. Wendy's slowly walking away, and just the things he's saying. It's not scary, as like you said. It's not a jump scare or a monster. It's the human element. Like he is the monster in that circumstance, and what he's saying and the music all comes together in one of the most chilling scenes in the whole film.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the music, because like in his other films, Kubrick uses pre-recorded classical music in certain scenes to really create an atmosphere, and in this scene particularly, I think the song is called Polymorphia. It's once again, it's that atonal music where it's just building up that suspense, and it reminds me of the scene in 2001 where he uses a piece by Ligeti, which he also uses in this movie, where they're looking at the monolith for the first time. It's just that slow, it almost mirrors Jack's descent into madness. It's that slow build-up, and then it's just a cacophony of sounds. And Ted, for your point for the images, I mean, one of the best scenes of the movie, the scariest scenes, is room 273. And I like this change from the book where we don't see what happens to Danny when he goes inside of the room, so it creates more of a division between the family, because Wendy really doesn't know if Jack hurt him or not. And then when Jack goes into the room, I mean, we all know this scene. It's once again, it's just settling, the camera settling on these characters, allowing us to feel their emotions and how they are perceiving these moments in the film. And another creepy image, I mean, just always freaks me out when I see it, is, you know, the BJ Bear. The guy just blowing some guy randomly in the middle of the film, you know, it's... So what do you guys think about Shelley Duvall in this movie? Because that's one of the most contentious points.
She was hard to watch.
People think that she's either great or they think that she's terrible.
She's not great. I feel like as the film gets...
I don't think she's a great actress.
No.
I think it was just the role she had to play. I think Kubrick just changed the whole role of Wendy, and it made the guy who read the book and then saw the movie, it made the reader think that she was going to be a certain way when she wasn't.
Well, yeah, in the novel, she's more fleshed out, obviously, and she's a better character.
She's just an idiot in the movie.
Yeah, I think as
it's
the
just a different character.
The film goes on, I think she gets better. The character's just not written well in the film. And I
performance
guess,
didn't jump out.
And I guess it's like a testament of the time of filmmaking in that time. I mean, she kind of just is reduced to a damsel, and she comes off as a bumbling idiot.
In the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, as the film goes on, as the film gets weirder, her performance becomes more convincing because she becomes the distraught, emotionally unbalanced. And the one line that always sticks to me is on the staircase when she's backing up and she has the bat and she says to Jack,
I'm very confused. I just need a chance to think things over.
It's just such a simple little line, but it really represents how she's feeling in this moment. What the hell is happening to my husband? This man that I've been with for years. Why is he losing his mind? Because even in the book, she's not seeing the supernatural elements of the hotel like Jack and Danny.
She believes it, though. She believes her son when she's telling him everything.
Right, but
in the book.
the supernatural elements present themselves to her later in the story in both versions, whereas Jack and Danny, it's really from the beginning, especially for somebody like Danny. You know, has Tony telling him in the beginning of the movie and the novel, don't go to the Overlook Hotel, bad things are going to happen. And the red rum, red rum.
Ugh. But
so fucking freaky.
I
dude.
mean,
I liked it.
in the beginning, she's kind of, once you get used to it and as it goes on, she kind of, what's his name? Grady even says when Jack's locked in the pantry, oh, she's stronger than we thought. So she does come into her own as the film goes on, and she does basically save her and Danny. But I would say, the most part, she's really just not well written.
Yeah, and it would have been better if they developed their relationship like they do in the book, where there is love there, that they're trying to mend their relationship. There's a chance that they can reconcile. And like you said, there's points in the book where they're in the hotel and they say that this is the happiest they've ever been. In the movie, there's none of that. The hotel is just horror from as soon as they get there to the end of the film.
Jack says that, though, doesn't he? In the movie?
No.
That he's happy?
Yeah, he says he's happy. I think when he's holding Danny, he's like, I love you. And he's like, oh, fuck. And that's the other thing, the relationship between Danny and Jack, because that's something in the book. Wendy is very frustrated that Danny seems to have a preference to Jack over her, and she's wondering why. And in the movie, once again, there's really no relationship between Jack and Danny. It's just that moment where they're in the hotel room and he's sitting on his lap. But it's a really freaky moment.
Yeah, it's also like Jack Nicholson. You can never really, just the way he acts, even when he's supposed to be like just normal Jack in the movie, you can just tell like, oh, this guy's gonna
interview.
Yeah, he's like, oh, he's definitely gonna snap and kill his family if an axe. Or
Pretty
try to at least.
It's pretty unsettling hearing the story of Grady and killing his whole family with an axe and then pulling a shotgun in his mouth, and then Jack just sits there and says, oh, that's a pretty good story.
And there's that thing with his eyebrows. It's like, yeah, if I'm Ullman, I'm like, next.
Sorry, man.
I don't like your eyebrows, buddy.
But just like a little fun fact, I was reading up on something, and it could either be an attest to why she was such a bad actor, or maybe it was just Kubrick and the way he wrote her role. But I read something saying that Kubrick was a piece of shit to...
Yeah, and that's been well
Shelley
documented.
Duvall.
She came out a couple years ago on, I forget what show she was on, and she said that she attributes her mental illness to Kubrick and the way that he treated her on that film, because the amount of takes that Kubrick, and Kubrick is notorious for this, he takes like a bajillion takes to open a door. I think that's what Tom Cruise said in the scene in Eyes Wide Shut when he was coming through the door. They shot it like 100 times. And because that was real emotion on that set. She wasn't scared of Jack. She was scared of Kubrick. Yeah. She's like, what the hell is going on here?
I mean, he hasn't really had a film where
Just keep the
been
goddamn
great
take.
women to have there. I mean,
Not only has it's
Full Metal
Kubrick's films
Jacket,
are,
there's nothing.
but it's not even great
Clockwork
women. It's like
Orange.
great characters either.
Yeah.
It's like his films are more about the technical aspect and the overall story and the feeling, the ambiguity. I mean, 2001's my favorite film of all time. I'd be hard pressed to name all the human characters in that movie. I know Hal. Hal's a good character.
I think Dr. Strangelove had like the best
Yeah.
group of just characters, most memorable.
Okay. I'm gonna get your money for you. But if you don't get the President of the United States on that phone, you know what's gonna happen to you?
What?
You're gonna have to answer to the Coca-Cola Company.
Well, the thing is, too, another criticism of him is that sometimes he doesn't get the best performances out of his actors, or he's not good at casting his films. Barry Lyndon, Ryan O'Neal is another performance that's criticized of Kubrick because it was some American actor whose Irish accent is not great. Why not just get an Irish actor for this role? And the film is considered a masterpiece, but then you have this glaring problem,
Yo,
the main character.
I was watching Ocean's 11 last night, and Don Cheadle, once he tries to do his Cockney British accent, I'm like, oh my God, why didn't they just get a British dude?
Yeah.
It's so distracting.
It's I just don't understand that in movies in general. Like if you have a role where you know you need somebody who's British or Australian, there's plenty of actors from all around the world. Just get that, but that's something else.
You know what's something that both Stephen King and Kubrick did well? They did a really good job of making the Overlook like it was an actual character in the movie. Just the way he developed both characters. Like I'll call them characters. It really felt like they were alive.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would say. I think you mentioned right after we watched it just how condensed they made the Overlook look, because it's a massive building, but they really are.
There's 3 people in there.
Yeah, and they really are confined to a very small area. Same thing in a novel. They don't eat in the grand dining room. They eat in the kitchen because it's just so big. And you also remarked too that one shot when he's just going around in circles on his bike,
Yeah,
and
it's
just the way it's
just
tracking.
felt trapped.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
That was a good theme in the movie too, where Danny, Wendy, and Jack were all trapped.
And you kind of have the competition between generations. You know, you have the character Jack Torrance, who's a writer. He uses words to express how he's feeling. And then you have his son, Danny, who's more about feelings and imagery and, you know, pictures in a book. And that's how he's expressing it. And when he does try to warn his mother, it's a word that's backwards. And he has to write it on a mirror. And it just kind of represents how their whole world has just been turned upside down.
When I first saw that, I'm like, what?
I kind of felt stupid. I was like, oh, I should have probably put that together. Because it's in the book so much.
Yeah, but in a novel, it's like red rum.
Red rum.
I thought when I like you can take that as they talk so much about his father's alcoholism. Maybe that's like what causes him to go off. He just starts drinking rum again and gets drunk. But no, maybe flip it over. It says murder.
It's a clever way to kind of insert that in there. You know, red rum, the alcoholism.
I didn't read the book. I listened to it, and the entire time, maybe I could have caught it if I was reading it like you guys. Why does he keep saying red rum? It's really fucking pissing me off. And then you obviously find out at the end, but
Danny, you know, like Danny.
You guys like that part? That he uses
Tony?
like his finger. Yeah,
That's a
Tony.
little weird.
I like it. Yeah,
I like
that's
his
why I like it.
His voice was creepy, yeah, but I didn't like the finger. Like maybe
I thought the
just talk
kid
like
he was kind of like.
Did you like Danny?
I liked him better in the novel. He's very.
Well, he's a better character in the novel, but it's hard to.
Big
He
Ola,
feels
though,
like a
it feels like
20-year-old man in the novel. He talks like an adult. He doesn't talk like a kid. And I
Guy's
think,
reading, man.
yeah, the guy speaks in complete sentences.
They're getting
and-
so tight. It's like, enough reading today. You're getting too smart on us, Danny boy.
Yeah.
Doc.
In the book, in the movie, he feels like an actual kid. Like a kid wouldn't know. Like even when he has the conversation with Dick Halloran, where he's not opening up to Dick, whereas in the book, he kind of just flat out tells him everything that's going on with him. In the movie, he's very reluctant because he says that he's not supposed to. He never spoke like that in the book, supposed to. So I enjoyed I think that's one of the changes that works in the movie is the character of Danny. Well, I prefer him to be more quiet. He's creepier that way.
Do you say that the Dick? How do you say his last name? Harahan?
Halloran.
Hammerhead.
I'm gonna say that. Do you?
Hammerhead. That's a hell of a porn name.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Do you guys think that the
You got the shining in you,
the
baby.
Dick? I can't say his last name, so I'm saying his first name. It's gonna sound weird, but do you guys think the Dick Danny character relationship transferred well?
I
from
do.
the
I
book
think
to the
that's the
movie?
best thing that transferred to the movie is their relationship because you don't really need to focus on. You just need that one scene where Dick is telling him, "Hey, you're not alone in this world. I have this power too. My grandmother has it. 5 people that I'm going to meet later in the story have it, but not in the movie." Yeah, I thought that was really well done, and I like the scenes where you don't know what's happening to Danny when it cuts to him and his face is just kind of spazzing out. It looks like he's going through the wormhole at the end of 2001.
Oh yeah.
And he's calling to Dick. He's like, "Come on, Dick, come save us, you sicko."
Yeah, in the book, it was a lot more descriptive. You know, Danny was literally calling him, saying, "What's going on?"
And I love the Dick chapters in the book.
Yeah,
A lot
that's
of
what-
great Dick
Because
chapters.
you get so much more about what his personal connection to what The Shining is, and he knows what the danger is. And yes, that's the dilemma. I just met this family once. I'm gonna go all the way
Across
to
the
save this
world.
kid and risk my life, and I love that about him. And the whole time, because it's so drawn out from all the problems on the airplane and just trying to get up the mountain, trying to rent a car, and just going so in depth. I'm like, why is he gonna do all this? He's just gonna get fucking hit with an axe once he walks in the door.
I think
in the book though, you don't.
Yeah, I know that, but I see.
the
I
good
saw,
part
I
of
saw
reading
the
the book first.
I saw the movie first. I'm like, he's gonna do all this and just die right away. I like in the novel how he actually, lived and saved the family.
Well, I appreciate it in the novel because I was like, oh, he's going to die either way, but it's cool that we get more insight into his powers and his relationship to The Shining, like you said. But I think it was a change they had to make because then nobody would have died in the movie, right? Dick is the only person who dies.
Technically, yeah.
And it's another controversial change is that...
Jack.
Right, I guess he does die. But in the book, it's more of he sacrificed himself for his family. And even though there's been that struggle between them, I've always thought, I saw it as the relationship between Jack and Danny is that it's almost like a LeVar Ball, Joe Jackson situation where he's vicariously living through Danny because he thinks that the hotel wants him for what he can do for them, but they really want Danny. So it's still that struggle between generations. It's my son is better than me. I can't accept this. But at the end of the story in the book, he sacrifices himself. In the movie, he just becomes a monster. And that's another change that I like, the maze instead of the hedges.
Oh god, if they would have adapted that, it would have been like a half hour of just fucking hedges slowly moving.
You didn't
when
want
I-
to see.
The way they described that in the book, it was so
like
fucking
I'm like,
long,
oh
dude.
my god, all right, get on with it. And I don't mind like even when he's going through the
It's like those old cartoons when they're trying to sneak into something and they just keep their position
Yeah, exactly. What that
under a lamp.
Stephen King did a great job visualizing that for the reader. Like you, if you're reading that, you really see what's happening behind him. It's like you see a turn and he turns back around and it doesn't move. Like you kind of like you get freaked out with.
but after
Jack.
a while I'm like, all
But
right.
I thought they captured that in The Maze.
Yeah.
Because it was impossible to do that in the 1980s. You could probably do that now with special effects, but you're not bringing hedges to life in the 1980s. I
It's a
love
real
those
maze.
scenes in The Maze. The way that it's shot, because you talked about how Kubrick filmed The Overlook to be very claustrophobic.
Yeah.
That's how I felt in The Maze, those tracking shots where you think that Jack can pop out at any second and Danny's tumbling and stumbling and he's running for his life. I really like that whole sequence.
I was watching the Parks and Rec when Chris Pratt's in Britain and he says, he's like, you remember the British Lord they're trying to win over for the
Yeah.
charity? He's like, yeah, one time when I was little I got stuck in a corn maze for 2 days. And he's like, that sounds awesome. He's like, it was.
Or when he's in the maze at the big celebration that they have, the festival,
Harvest
and he's just
Festival.
running around and he's like, this maze, it's like a maze in here. That's kind of like how Danny felt.
A big change from the novel to the movie was the ending, though. The whole movie, you feel like maybe there's a chance. Oh, I'm sorry. The whole novel, you feel like there's a chance they can get out of it alive, and maybe they can be happy. When in the movie, there's no shot. Their marriage, their family, it's torn apart.
Right, yeah, that is a good point. Where, like I said, Jack's sacrifice at the end, it's more heartbreaking because
Yeah.
you think that he's finally realizing what he's doing and he's trying to break away from his possession and he sacrifices himself for his family. In the movie, it's like, that guy just lost his fucking mind.
Yeah,
man.
it's the difference of the two.
It makes
like,
him look worse.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They're two completely different characters. I mean, Jack in the novel is more endearing, like you said. You're rooting for him in a sense, and he kind of overcomes that at the end for a split second to give them enough time. And in the film, he's just a straight villain. He's a straight monster. Like he's like
Yeah, and I'm not saying
and they're both
which one
good.
is
I
better, right.
I like both takes of the character.
It's
Right.
almost like if you're gonna review The Shining and The Shining the book, you gotta just take it for what they are. They're two completely different.
It's the same thing with Game of Thrones, man. At
They're
this
two
point,
different like.
it's
I
any
don't
movie
know
that's adapted from the book. You have to see them as two separate things. I think what is a valid criticism for The Shining that can't be dismissed.
Which one?
If you were to add certain things from the novel that are left out that you feel like they could have made room for them, that the movie would have been even better. I think it's a great movie. Maybe you can elevate it to a masterpiece because I don't think it's a masterpiece. I think it's a great horror film. I think it's top 10 Kubrick. I think he made like 11 films.
The cinematography was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
In this movie, that opening scene, the helicopter. I guess like they're filming from like a helicopter, but the pan over when they're driving to the Overlook. My favorite one could probably be the elevator with the blood.
And another point about the cinematography, something that I like, is that so many horror films and scary films, they mostly set their scares in the dark. They're preying on you from the shadows. In The Shining, every scary scene is really just kind of in the daylight, except for the ending in the maze. But most of the scares in this movie feature well-lit scenery. You can see the evil in front of you. The monster isn't preying on you from the shadows. It's right there, and you have to confront it. And to me, that's, if I was in this situation in real life, that's just even scarier, when you can see the thing that's coming for you, and that thing can see you. And there's so many different theories as to what the hotel represents, that the blood is the blood of Native Americans that were slaughtered, because there's a lot of Native American imagery all throughout the Overlook. But there's just tons of theories that we could talk about.
I really want to all those little Easter eggs if they really are there for a reason, or people are just like digging for shit.
Yeah, and the themes they talk about, toxic masculinity, obviously domestic abuse, alcoholism. There's so many themes that you can dissect this movie with. All I know is that movie and book, they're both great.
Mhm.
I would recommend both. I would recommend watching the movie first and then getting a different experience from the book, because if you read the book first, you might be a little disappointed by the movie.
It would be perfect though. You watch the movie and then you read the book and then you get all your answers to how the family is the way they are and how the Overlook is the way it is.
I mean, I think they're just different characters at this point. So you're getting answers to characters that aren't the same.
All right, so that's our review. Thanks for watching, folks. And thanks to Andy Grieg. Andy was one of our Patreon pledgers who suggested that we review The Shining book and movie, so thank you, Andy. And you can check out our Patreon page and see the different rewards we offer to those who pledge. And maybe one day you can suggest a book, a movie, a TV show, or a video game for us to review. We'd love to do it. All right, thanks, guys.
Follow me on Twitter.
Monkey out.
What the hell's that?
Are you like a secret agent, monkey?
You don't
Teddy
know,
out.
You don't know my past.
You're a Russian spy?
Teddy out.
That doesn't work.